This is a movie on the employment of the Delilah guided missile. The Delilah missile is available to Israel, so is only available for use in the Israeli theater of operations. And within that theater, you have to be flying for Israel. So today, I am flying an Israeli F-16 Charlie Block 40 aircraft. So a couple things you have to do for the loadout of the aircraft. When you're going to carry Delilah missiles in the center of the fuselage, you need to load in the AN/ASW-55 data link pod. To the front of that, on the left chin, you'll see that the targeting pod is loaded. We will not use the targeting pod for this demonstration. On the wings, on the two pylons on the inside of each wing are the two Delilah missiles. There are two variants of the missile, different seekers. One has a television and one has an infrared or IR seeker. I have two television based Delilahs on this aircraft. Outside of that, I have four infrared missiles for dogfighting. The two on the inbound pylons of each wing are Python 5 Israeli infrared missiles, and on the outer pylons, I have two AIM-9 mics. All right, so back in the cockpit. So that's what you have to consider for a loadout. You need the data link pod and the Delilah missiles, and it is pilot's choice as to the type of seeker head he wants on the missiles. So the next consideration is flight planning. So for today's flight, we're going to go after a SA-10 unit. And this is my version of how I flight plan for employing the Delilah. I build a triangle, and at the pointy end of the triangle is the target unit. The base of the triangle are going to be the two steer points in which I am holding, which is going to be outside of the range of the target unit. The SA-10 is a pretty nasty customer if you get within the lethal range. The profile of the missiles once they launch is they launch very high, sort of like a high fly ball in a baseball game, and they will come down on top of you. It's almost impossible once you're in range and launched at to defeat that missile. So, to defeat it with the Delilah, I'm not going to get inside of its lethal range. So I build that triangle. I also build sort of an entry point to the launch area, which is my steer point 4, which is the pure white steer point. That's the current steer point we are driving towards in this scenario. I've also put the aircraft in air-to-ground mode. The aircraft is fenced in, the master arm is on, so we are hot. We will deploy a weapon when we press the trigger. So once in the air-to-ground, on the right multifunction display, or MFD, I have selected the weapon, so I'm actually looking out of the Delilah, which is on rack 3 on my wing. So currently the status of that weapon is it is strapped to the aircraft. The video that I'm looking through, pod video, is not lit up, so the video is not coming through the AN/ASW-55 data link pod. It's coming through the actual weapon. I'm on channel 1. I don't think the channel frequencies are used yet within the game. And what I'm going to do when I come out of pause here is I'm going to go to my control screen, and I'm going to set a cruise altitude for the missile to cruise into its target. So then on the left MFD, I have the horizontal situation display, which is going to show my flight plan. Now I currently have it at 120 mile range. Once I unpause it, I'm going to take this back down to 30 miles, which will give me a little better picture of my holding pattern. So what I'm going to do once I launch this missile, and I'm going to launch a missile that's at a range of 60 miles, is I'm going to do a right turn and track into this steer point. And once I hit this steer point, I'm going to do another right turn, and I'm just going to do a right hand holding pattern outside of the lethal range of the SA-10. My specific target has been programmed in a precision target steer point. Steer point 15 is going to point to the radar of the SA-10 unit. Once the specific radar component is killed, that unit will be blind. It will not be able to see me, and it will not be able to launch any missiles at me. So for my second launch, I'm going to drive in closer to the SA-10. All right, so let's get on with things. I'm going to back up, get a good cockpit view here, and unpause. And I'm going to drive in. Now I'm driving into steer point 4, but I'm going to select my target steer point, which is 15. And I'm going to drive into steer point 15. So we have the same cockpit, the same HUD display as we do for CCRP bombing. We have the range, in range indicator, and we have the pointer arrow telling where we are, which is coming down to the launch range. Once it's within this bracket, we'll be clear to launch, but I'm going to launch when my miles to the target say 60, and then I'm going to start my orbit. There are 2 tracking antennas on the aircraft. Immediately after launch, I'm going to be on forward antenna. So I'll be pointing towards the missile as the missile flies away towards my precision steer point. And then once I turn, I'm going to put it in aft antenna, and the aft antenna will track it as I'm in the holding pattern. I'm going to go set my RPM to about 95%. So I'm holding a pretty good airspeed here. And we're 68 miles from the target. There's the SA-10 radar popping up. It's currently scanning, and it's hitting me during its scans. And once I drive in, that will be a little more frequent in duration, the number of times it's hitting my aircraft. One other thing for consideration is you have to, when your engine's starting on the ramp, you have to power up your Delilah missiles just like any other air-to-ground missile. So nothing new there. And both missiles have been powered up. We'll go to the SMS page, and you can see that the power is on both missiles, and they are not timed out, so we're good to launch. All right, we're within 60. Here goes the launch. Oh, I did not set the altitude on this one, so I'll go ahead and set it for the next launch that I demonstrate. All right, so I'm going to turn out, and I'm going to track to my holding point. Notice I have lost the signal from the aircraft to the missile because I'm in the turn and my antennas are blocked. But also, if you look at the lower right side of my right MFD, the pod video is lit up. So actually what I'm looking at once I roll out here and regain the missile is I'm looking at it through the tracking pod. I'm going to go to aft antenna, and So what I'm looking at here is so far the time of flight has been coming up on 1 minute. The missile's 50.6 miles from the impact point. The missile is cruising currently at a course of 245. Yeah, that makes sense. 524 knots, and is at 21,700 and some odd feet. So I'm going to continue on this course until the missile is 30 miles from the target. Then I'm going to do a right turn to a heading of about 160 degrees, 180 degree turn, and pick up tracking of the missile again for terminal guidance into the target. So you can hear the SA-10 is pulsing with increased duration. So at this point, if I was within range, there would be at least one SA-10 missile inbound on me. Up on 35 miles to target, and I'm going past my steer point, but I'm not really worrying about that. So let me show something that you can look at as well. On the left MFD, I went out to 120 miles. You can see this yellow X with a line connected back to my aircraft. That is showing the position of the missile as it's tracking in the target. Okay, we're at 30 miles, so I'm going to go ahead and turn. Now, if you want, it's kind of pilot's choice here. You can put yourself on autopilot. Some may prefer to do that, or manually fly it. I do both ways, but since I overflew that steer point in my triangle, I decided to just manually fly this particular leg. All right, so we're just about where we want to be. We're going to roll out. And you can see the SA-10 is now on our right side. It's on the right side of the aircraft. We are currently 22 miles. The missile is currently 22 miles from target. So I'm going to take control of the missile when it is at 10 miles. So we'll start looking here. We're looking for this little triangle. That triangle is where our target is going to be. So when I take control of the missile, I'm going to slew its head down to this triangle, and then arm the fuse, take it out of cruise first, arm the fuse, and then slew it down and track it in to the target. Miles. 10 miles. Taking it out of cruise, and I'm arming the fuse and tracking it towards the diamond. There's the diamond. and I hit expand. I'm expanding the view just kind of to focus in on it. Quick TMS up. Now my technique is to aim at the base of the unit so the missile does not overfly. I think if you aim at the top, there's a chance the missile will overfly the unit. So I'm going to be aiming at the closest base of that unit, and shortly that sound should disappear. Boom. All right. I have the next steer point selected, 16. I've come out of pod video, so I'm looking through the next missile that is strapped on my aircraft, and I'm going to make a right turn and track inbound within range of the missile launchers, or of the actual missiles, to demonstrate that the radar is indeed dead. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go to the control screen and I'm going to assign a cruise altitude of 16,000 by hitting 160. Nope, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Cruise 160. 16,000 feet. I'll hit control to come back out. Okay, this missile I'm going to shoot when I'm 50 miles. Now, actually, I'm going to track in a little further, and I'm just going to make one right turn and guide it in that way. I'm going to go to forward antenna on this missile. Okay, you'll notice my MFD color has changed on my threat circle. It's now red, indicating I'm within range. But since there is no radar on this unit, they cannot see me. Therefore, they cannot launch at me. We'll launch at 45. And our missile is away.
Caution. Caution.
We're now category 1, so we're going to hit our category 1 switch. We're going to go to aft antenna, and we're going to make our right turn. Now, of course, this only works going in the lethal area of the target if indeed you have destroyed the radar of that SAM unit. If that radar is still active, you're going to have a lot of attention and a lot of missiles in the air coming at your aircraft. All right, we have the aft antenna selected. We have linkage to the missile. It's coming through the pod. If you notice on the MFD, on the left MFD, there's the X, the missile tracking. So we're going to go ahead and take the trim we put in out and just let the aircraft more or less fly itself. And if we look over here, we'll notice the missile's on a course of 247, 501 knots, and it's right around 16,000 feet, and it's within 29 miles of the, not quite yet, now it's within 9 miles of the target rather, 28.4. Same type of scenario when the missile is 10 miles, and this is just how I do it. When the missile is 10 miles, I'm going to take it out of cruise, I'm going to arm the fuse, and I'm going to guide it towards the triangle that is the target. In this case, you notice since the cruise altitude is lower than 21,000, the tracking arrow, the tracking diamond to the target is up. It's on the top of the MFD. And we're within 10 miles. I'm now guiding the missile into its terminal phase. And again, I'm shooting for the base of the target. And this is indeed a SA-10 launcher that I'm targeting. Okay, time to go home. So we will come out of air-to-ground mode, go back to navigation mode. We're going to select the steer point of our recovery base, steer point 8, and go ahead and head home. I hope this video was helpful.